Are fell bats any good in patch 5.3? You're probably thinking no, but it depends on the situation. Vampire counts do boost them, and there are a few little ins and outs with them, but basically they have a place. How much you can use them productively is up to what your enemy brings and your skill. First, let's look at what we're dealing with, because that's the starting point for those who borrow their use, like Vampire Coast or Arc in the Black. Recruited for 350 dark magic and 88 upkeep. That's still a lot more than regular zombies, just be warned. On Ultra, this gets you 60 entities at a low health of 4,200 or 70 per entity. Armor is 0 without any benefit from being ethereal because they aren't. Leadership 30 is anything below 30 base leadership in this entire game. So, it's bottom tier. Speed 110 right out of the aviary, with charge speed also 110, means we should take from this that for bats, speed is unlike TM. Melee attack begins at 19, which is miserable, yes. Attack interval 4.3 isn't itself horrible. There is no splash damage whatsoever. Melee defense begins at a whopping 44, seeming almost miraculously high. So while low HP, once in melee combat they can last a while, at least until the morale crumbles. Weapon strength 26 is split between base 20 and armor piercing 6, which is clan rat-ish and not particularly awful, except for there only being 60 bats. Charge bonus is 6 and mass is 150, which means they have some ability to pull out, but it's a struggle. Besides obviously flying, the bats have standard undead features, cause fear, and have vanguard deployment, which is eternally useful for this type of unit, but you can't always take real advantage. In the redline skills, Call of the Night at 3 pips grants plus 12% speed, which, defaulting at 110, is a fair bit of a boost, and charge bonus plus 12 flat. Recall from mere moments ago, charge bonus stands at 6 default. This is literally tripling the charge bonus, turning an initial wave of melee attack 25 blows into melee attack 37. It matters. Any that survive to rank 7 and above would benefit from, of course, Flying Horrors for melee attack plus 5, charge bonus plus 12 again, raising it to 30, quintupling the starting value, and missile resistance 15% to boot because it's no fun getting sniped by huntsmen. In the tech tree, the Noiro's Blasphemous Bestiary raises leadership by 5 alongside Dire Wolves, and when starting leadership isn't just worst in slot but worst in game, this matters. Corruptor of the Forest shaves 10% off upkeep and 10% off raised dead and regular recruitment costs. Master of the Swarm adds plus 20 armor from 0, adds plus 5 melee defense to make them even more tarpit-ier, and adds armor piercing damage plus 1 for fellbats. That is, instead of AP 6, it's AP 7, or full Empire Swordsman standard level. Blood Hunts raises the recruit rank from regular recruitment by 2. You know the type you're told never to do. There's a province commandment that raises that by 1 as well. Now, how do we use fellbats? There's a bunch of ways, but it basically revolves around vertical envelopment. You don't need to flank around the sides like direwolves. You can literally just fly over the front line and attack it from behind. You're going to need to constantly assess whether that's a good idea or a really bad one, based on what's behind that front line, if anything. Isolated squishy lords of little concern, masked archers ready to shoot you to pieces, or cavalry ready to counter-charge, a tactic I've often used, and often counseled, when fighting bats. But that brings up a very important thing. Bats count as small targets. That means bonus versus infantry applies, but equally, bonus versus large does not. In some senses, after archer units, fell bats are the natural enemy of low-tier spearmen. Bats aren't likely to kill such a unit alone, but tying it down, preventing it from bracing, and putting relatively elite melee defense against whatever miserable melee attack the spearmen have against quote-unquote infantry targets, and you have something to work with. This can be used as simple as mobbing city walls from the back side while friendlies climb up and engage from the front. This combination alone can wreck the morale and the prospects of units bats have no business defeating alone. Frankly, that is also against stuff the units climbing up have no business beating alone either. So, sandwiching, hitting from behind, and so on, these are things you should do. Moreover, at that speed, bats are credible at chasing a lot of light cavalry, but often I have used pistoliers to thin their ranks. You have to be good and fast, but bats, even at that speed, are only so nimble. Bullets travel faster. Nonetheless, you can even do something as cheekily as bravely sacrificing a bat unit to frustrate a melee cavalry charge. Bats can do a lot against low armor troops, well, particularly missile troops, but a lot in the game stops being that in mid-game and so on. So bats are either expendable, a convenience unit, or both. You're not going to doomstack them. However, in very specific situations, they will erase a missile line or tie one down long enough for Black Knights to trample the rest. In very video game terms, they have utility. I want to give a shout out at this point to a very, very specific situation, but Isabella von Karstein's personal line includes several kinds of completely insane and OP boosts for Fellbats and Dire Wolves. I'm not kidding that much. Leadership +8, melee attack +8, the Hunger, armor piercing +5, that is, layered with attack, Fellbats will do 20 base damage and 12 armor piercing. Finally, they get Wayfarer, greatly improving acceleration and deceleration, and plus 30% speed. Now, setting aside the whole, stop on a dime aspect here, the max potential for the bats is therefore around 156 speed. Those Pistoliers are toast. You still aren't doomstacking Fellbats. Sigmar, no! But I want all the young vampires reassured that such evil does exist in the world. For everyone else, it can be a challenge keeping your bats alive, but on the other hand, an army that invested heavily in artillery but can't protect its back doesn't necessarily need crypt ghouls sneaking through the underbrush like special forces. You can just blithely fly bats in and feast on their crews. When using bats, the question that needs to flash through your mind is, what is the enemy doing to stop me? If the answer is, not enough, then be aggressive. Otherwise, you might be sacrificing the bats for minimal gain. If the answer is, I don't really care, then so be it. Or you just might not have good choices. That happens. Otherwise, you're either looking for something they can survive, or something they can trade well with while kissing on life goodbye. Just a quick note, my experience says, a settlement tower should not be attacked with fewer than 2 bat units, and it's not that it works great or anything, but if that's their best engagement instead of the infantry mosh pit, that's a valid choice too. Take care and have fun taunting your foes, because if you're beating them with trash units, they're less than trash. At least that's what foul-mouthed pilots would say in anime.
You